cheating fiance got mad and destroyed my house when I threw her to the curb. So here's my story. Many years ago, I was casually involved with a girl we'll call Melissa. We saw each other for a couple months, and it was really casual. After a while, we just both ghosted one another, which was pretty fine with me. Didn't really give it another thought. Fast forward about 4 years, I'm single and goofing around on Facebook. When I get a friend request from Melissa, I remember having fun with her, so I accept. We chat real briefly every so often, and that was that. Turns out she had started dating another guy in the music scene, and they had been together for 3 years. They moved to another city together so he could go to school. Anyway, she messages me one night, and after a little while, she starts guiding the conversation to how much fun it was when we hung out. I was like, yeah, it was chill. Our conversations after that got more and more. I like you and my current relationship sucks, and I'm going to break up with him. To which I was like, okay, well, you let me know if when that happens. Long story short, Melissa tells me she's broke up with her ex and moves back to my city. So we start hanging out. It's fine like any other new relationship, but there are little blips that make me a bit suspicious. Text obviously not meant for me being accidentally sent to me. But to her recent ex-boyfriend, she was pretty dumb. A whole summer of weird drama with the ex transpires, and long story short, she hadn't actually broken up with him. I wasn't pleased to learn this, but by then I was really into her and was of the mindset that she was my girlfriend, and if she wanted to be with me, she would have to clearly indefinitely break it off with the other guy. She does. About 6 months later, I set out to buy a house and she goes in on it with me. We have a happy relationship. Her family loves me. We get a couple cats and a dog. Everything is pretty good for about 1.5 years or so. Then she tells me that her dad, who lived in a neighboring city, wanted to move to our city to be closer to his children. She asks if her dad can move in with us for a few months at most. I agree that a couple months is doable. He moves in, and despite promising to pull his weight and help out, ends up being a lazy piece of crap. The relationship declines to basically roommates that share a bed, no love. The couple months of her dad living with us turns into 1.5 years. During this time, Melissa decided she wanted to vastly change her career from secretary to carpenter, and need being as supportive to a fault guy support this change. Part of this career transition requires a few months in a different city to do classwork. This was fine as her cousin lived in the city, and she could stay there during the week at home on weekends. I'm sure you all can see where this is going. Her texts and calls became less and less frequent and descended into one-word responses. There were days on end when she wouldn't respond back and all my calls went to voicemail. She claimed it was that she ran out of minutes. After her 3 months of school, she came back home. A couple days back, she broke up with me, citing that we had just grown apart. Honestly, I was relieved. Our relationship was garbage, and I was really only sticking it out until the spring. It was October because selling a house in the fall sucks. That night we agreed to start the listing process while still living together. The next morning, she leaves her phone out while getting ready for work, and a text came in from a baby. I confronted her about it because despite I was happy we were broken up, I cared about the circumstance under which we broke up. She said that it was a guy from school and that nothing had happened yet. It turns out she had started seeing this guy, who was 15 years her senior with 2 teenage children, right when her school started. They had a full-on relationship where they'd even dropped the big L word and so on. Whenever she was unavailable, she was with this guy. I was angry. Not so much that she had cheated, but because I was holding down the fort with her useless dad and supporting this career change while she was out philandering. Now remember, it was still autumn. Selling a house in autumn is crappy. And at this point my focus was on getting a house sold and not losing my shirt. With the house selling becoming my priority, I set my sights on drawing things out as long as I could. So I told Melissa I didn't want to break up, that I understood that things were rough with us, and then I understood why things happened, how they did, that we should work things out. For the next 3.5 months, I managed to convince her that things were mending. She broke it off with school romance guy. Her dad moved out. She started to come around, not entirely, as she would still do sketchy things like get text messages and then disappear to the office for a bit or get super angry if I'd even picked up her phone. I was certain there was another guy she was screwing around with, but I didn't care. In the middle of February, I told her we were done and that she was to move out. She immediately went to the basement and made a phone call. About a half hour later, some guy I've never seen before came to pick her up. Over the next few days, she moved her things out while I was at work. She did all sorts of petty crap like smashing a bottle of my cologne, destroying my baseball hat, etc. All pretty minor, childish things that absolutely fit who she was. The house sold about 6 weeks later. There was a bit of petty drama with Melissa, but it largely stemmed from her just not understanding simple things. About a couple years after the relationship ended once and for all, I heard through the grapevine that Melissa had started dating the bassist for my old band. We'll call him Mike. He and I weren't close, so zero ducks were given. Melissa and Mike got engaged about a year ago. I guess he proposed over Christmas. Thing is, I've known Mike for probably 10 years. I also know his ex, who he dated for 7 years or so. She works for the home builder of the house my wife and I bought. We'll call her Jen. After Mike and Melissa got engaged, I texted Jen saying something like, "I bet we're not getting invited to the wedding." Hey, she then told me a story. Her and Mike still went for coffee every so often, and he had just unloaded on Jen with a recent event. A week after Mike proposed to Melissa, and she said yes, Mike had to go out of town for work. So to keep Melissa company, some of Mike's friends took Melissa to the local bar. And when I say Mike's friends, I mean the wives of his friends. Well, as the story goes, Melissa got real drunk and disappeared with some random guy for about an hour. The wives were calling her phone, looking all over, called Mike, etc. Turns out Melissa had gone and ducked that random dude in his truck out in the parking lot. They're still engaged. I guess some people will always be pieces of crap. Regarding the first boyfriend in the story that I inadvertently was the other guy enough, I've come close to reaching out to him and telling him how bad I feel. But as far as I can tell, he's in a good place, and I don't want to bring up bad memories. Plus, I think in doing that, it would be more for me than him. Story 2. Found out wife cheated and got pregnant. I was furious and filed for divorce. She was crying and begging to forgive her for one little mistake. So in a nutshell, my 30 AM ex-wife 30F got wasted and cheated on me with a guy. Let's call him Craig, who's been trying to get in her pants, knowing that we were married, sometimes even right in front of me. A true low-life god, Reddit mods really forcing me to be nice to this guy. I, as well as friends, gave her every warning, every concern, but she constantly brushed them off and even admitted to liking the attention once when we got into a heated argument about it. One day, she went drinking with the usual group while I was pulling an all-nighter for a freelance project. I hate when she drinks because she has zero self-control. I tell her this all the time, but since she was with the usual group of couples, I was cool with it. The guy, of course, showed up uninvited. She got blackout drunk despite promising not to woke up without clothes next to him in the middle of the night and ran home crying to me around 3 a.m. We tried reconciliation, but I just could not get over it no matter how hard she tried to bend over backwards. I know this is a pride thing, but Craig and I never got along. This was well known among our circles. And now this smug guy, come on mods, constantly holds this over my head to this day. She got pregnant and found out it was his. This was the last straw for me. 10 months of swallowing my pride while this guy trampled over our marriage drove me to the edge, and her decision to keep the baby basically cemented this guy's presence in her life. Duck that I filed for divorce. When she finally accepted that this marriage was over, everything went down without a hitch. She was very cooperative and very silent. I moved my stuff into my brother's garage, sold my car and our house, and left the States. I visited my mom in Indonesia and backpacked all around the country with my brother, their ancestor. Ex tried many times to text me and call me, telling me how much she missed me and how this one mistake ruined everything. I told her this wasn't just one mistake. It was a series of mistakes that I warned her about every step of the way, leading up to the ultimate betrayal with a guy that intentionally tried to screw us over. She handed this to him on a silver plate, the baby being icing on the cake. I finally blocked her everywhere. This trip was critical. I took time to grieve, heal, and move on. I even lost a lot of weight and have never been more fit in my life. I was there for 6 months before finally going back to the U.S. My brother helped me get set up in my own place, and my former employer connected me to a job opportunity. Doesn't pay me quite as well, but it's only temporary. After therapy, I started dating again, but only casually. I've met a lot of great and interesting women, had lots of hookups, one-night stand friends with benefits, also made new circles of friends. I know Tinder and online dating in general gets a lot of bad reputation, but I actually had an amazing and fun experience. Eventually, I got really close to one particular friend with benefits. Amazing woman, beauty, intellect, and bronze, and a nerd like me. She's been so good to me. We actually stopped hooking up at one point because she started dating a crush of hers. Our arrangement at the time was casual and nothing more, so she thought I would not reciprocate. Huge dude, accomplished boxer, super nice, super athletic and muscular. But she could not stop thinking about me. She completely fell for me. That's when she decided out of the blue to confess to me. She was so nervous. She was shaking. This strong, independent firecracker was shaking. Aha, sweet girl. I reciprocated because I too completely fell for her, despite my every effort to distance myself emotionally. She was so happy that night. She asked for some time to end things with her crush, which I obliged. She ended things with him, ended things with all her Tinder buddies, and we became exclusive 2 days later. We explored New Orleans together and had a blast. We plan on doing a road trip next. We'll see where we are in 2 years when her work visa ends. I'm not against moving with her overseas. She has to wait 2 years before being able to apply for a U.S. visa again. Maybe we'll come back. Maybe we won't. Who knows where life will take us? I just feel incredibly lucky to have found someone like her. Everything just feels right and evolved seamlessly. I've never felt more compatible with anyone else. In fact, she has opened my eyes to a lot of things that I tolerated in my previous relationships that I really shouldn't have and won't need to with her. And that has got me so relieved and excited. It's been amazing, and I've never been happier. Anyways, that's all I want to say. I hope this is inspiring for those of you who are going through this hellhole. It's truly a nightmare that I would never wish upon my worst enemy. Not even Craig, unless it'll teach him and make him a better person in the end. Stay strong and hang in there. It took me 1 month to grieve, 1 month of anxiety and depression, 1 month of anger, resentment, and then 1 month of acceptance. Everyone is different, but hang in there. A whole new chapter awaits at the end of the tunnel.